The satanic strategy of pretending things don't exist or that they're other than they are or that the world is as we want to lie ourselves into believing is obviously not just about the culture. It's also about our politics. There was a column in the Wall Street Journal this week that I would have said was a lunatic conspiracy theory if I did not follow this columnist closely, Holman Jenkins Jr. I know he's one of the best and sanest political writers in America. And he's been saying over and over again, remember the UFO scare a couple of months ago? Suddenly they were releasing videos and we're all supposed to say, maybe they're UFOs. There stuff flying around that the Air Force had seen and all this. Holman Jenkins Jr. has been saying, no, this is a purposeful distraction and disinformation campaign by the government to distract Americans from something else. But he didn't know what it was. He kept saying this over and over again. They're doing this on purpose. This is a disinformation campaign. So now he writes this. And I told you, if he came from anyone else, I would have said he was nuts. For those who couldn't figure out why I devoted 4 columns to the Pentagon UFO debate, this is why. It became clear that whether from serendipity or design, national security agencies were using UFOs to hide something they didn't want us to see. That something it has slowly dribbled out since last May was Chinese surveillance in U.S. airspace. Suspected Chinese drones have been in sometimes daily presence in U.S. military training sites going back perhaps a decade or more. We learn now of multiple balloon incursions too, right? This is the balloon. He says the Biden administration had apparently decided the UFO smokescreen was no longer compatible with the heightened geopolitical moment, and now they're telling us about the balloon, or as I like to call it, since it's a Chinese balloon, it's a baroon. So the whole UFO story was a cover-up for our inability or our unwillingness to deal with the Chinese drones, and now they feel they can't cover it up any longer. Holman Jenkins Jr. goes on to say the story has 2 parts. The U.S. government has become bad at investigating things, finding and sharing truths, and he goes through the things they haven't found out, who leaked this Supreme Court Dobbs decision. The IRS hasn't found out who stole and leaked a decade of tax data. The FBI never examined the Democrat National Committee server allegedly hacked by the Russians. It was forensically precluded from recovering Hillary Clinton's missing email. They can't find things out anymore. And that's the first part. And the second part is, as its truth-finding skills apparently atrophy, the federal government has become increasingly adept at using false information to solve problems. The FBI said objectively false Russian intelligence. The Justice Department's Inspector General used objectively false Russian intelligence. The Justice Department's Inspector General tells us to justify its improper acts in the Clinton email matter. It used false Steele dossier evidence to obtain a warrant on a minor Trump campaign associate. It used the same false information to stir the media's collusion pot. The U.S. officials again promoted false information about the Hunter Biden laptop in 2020, and father and son are now at odds, the dad having told the voters it was a Russian job, but the son actually admitting that it's famous. So now the New York Times runs a story yesterday, the day before. Steve Bannon's podcast is top misinformation spreader. Study says the Brookings Institution put out this list of misinformationists. Who was it? Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, Rush Limbaugh. The guy's dead. He's still spreading misinformation, which at least makes him powerful. Michael Savage, Brett Weinstein, Conservative Review with that Louder with Crowder, The Sean Hannity Show, Mark Levin podcast, Rudy Giuliani's Common Sense. Now, for obvious reasons, I was disappointed not to make this list, but I comforted myself with the fact that it wasn't an accurate list because it didn't include the New York Times. I mean, this is incredible. So why are they doing this? I mean, the government and the New York Times, the Washington Post have been filled not just with misinformation, but disinformation being planted by anonymous sources in the intelligence operations. 51 people saying the Hunter Biden laptop was simply Russian disinformation, had all the earmarks of Russian disinformation. And then when they challenged them, they said, well, we just said it had the earmarks. We didn't say it was Russian. Why are they doing this? Because it is part of a campaign, some of which is government funded, to hunt down disinformation, information that goes against the narrative that the government is trying to sell, and censor it. George Soros is funding an anti-misinformation campaign called Good Information Inc. that will identify misinformation and destroy it. And basically they're going to come after our sponsors. They're going to come after our platforms. They're going to come after everything. This is the plan in operation. And remember, this is not the revolution. This is the government doing it. This is the power. They've got the power. We're the ones who have to take it back. If you think climate change, if the climate change hoax is a hoax, that's misinformation. If you think Joe Biden is corrupt, if you think Pfizer lied about its vaccine, if you think Black Lives Matter is a Maoist organization targeting American freedom, or that the 1619 Project is distortion and lies, all of that is misinformation, and you're the problem. It's go back to that Twitter hearing again. I've told you this Twitter story is the story of the decade. It is an important story because it's the revelation. It is the revelation that the FBI used this massive platform that we all use, right, to censor information in the middle of an election. This laptop is real. Everything that's come out of it is real. It shows real corruption in the Biden family, including the fact that Biden was getting 10%, the big guy was getting 10%, and including the fact that Biden, our president, when he was not yet president, met with some of these people to help Hunter get the business deals that he got, that he would only have gotten if, in fact, he had a connection to Joe Biden. That's the only reason he was getting it. But there was more in this. There was also the stuff about the vaccine. So Nancy Mace, who's a Republican congresswoman from South Carolina, she got the vaccine. The second shot gave her asthma. It gave her other disorders, trembling, a heart problem that she's had, that she feels certain came from this vaccine. Twitter censored doctors who said simply, all vaccines have possible, side effects. This is not new stuff. Anybody can get hurt by a vaccine. You inject something into your body, it might hurt you, right? That is why many doctors said only old folks should get it. Only old folks and their caretakers should get it. Certainly not children, certainly not young men, certainly not young people. Congresswoman Mace is, 40, 45, something like that. No reason for her to get it. And now she has medical problems that are probably going to last for the rest of her life because of this vaccine. The people who said that you should only give it to the old folks were censored, knocked off Twitter. So she's questioning ex-Twitter official Vijaya Gandhi.
Where did you go to medical school?
I did not go to medical school.
I'm sorry?
I did not go to medical school.
That's what I thought. Why do you think you or anyone else at Twitter had the medical expertise to censor a doctor's expert opinion?
Our policies regarding COVID were designed to protect individuals. We were seeing...
You guys censored Harvard-educated doctors, Stanford-educated doctors, doctors that are educated in the best places in the world, and you silenced those voices.
So she's the one who suffered from it. They silenced people trained at the best medical places in the world because they didn't toe the government and big business line. Remember, Pfizer's big pharma, so they didn't toe those lines. Now, so we just heard that's a huge piece of information that goes along with the fact that the FBI also got them to silence Hunter Biden during the election. Here's AOC again.
A whole hearing about a 24-hour hiccup in a right-wing political operation. That is why we are here right now. And it's just an abuse of public resources, an abuse of public time. We could be talking about healthcare. We could be talking about bringing down the cost of prescription drugs. We could be talking about abortion rights, civil rights, voting rights. But instead, we're talking about Hunter Biden's half-fake laptop story. I mean, this is an embarrassment.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
It's no big deal, says AOC. It's not a thing. It's not even a thing that happens half fake. It's half fake. It's all true, but it's half fake. The devil doesn't exist. Woke doesn't exist. CRT isn't being taught in schools. Sexual groomers aren't. They're not sexually grooming your children. It's a culture war. Why are you starting this culture war with us? Why are you, doing that? Men in dresses or women. Don't you know they're women? If they're not women, you're phobic. If you don't say they're women, you're phobic. And if you don't say it's true, if you don't say all the lies are true, you're canceled, you're censored, you're off social media. But the devil doesn't exist, and the woke people aren't here. The biggest purveyor of misinformation in the country is the American government and the legacy media and the corporations who carry the water of this woke censorship that is the opposite of liberty. It's the opposite of what America was made for. It is the opposite of America. They sell it as Americanism, but it is the opposite. Everything about it is against the liberty that is what this country was founded to ensure. There's a movie, I've talked about this once before, but a long time ago, a wonderful kind of foundational movie of the 1960s called Blow Up by Michelangelo Antonioni, an English language movie made by an Italian director. And it's about a photographer. The plot's been stolen a million times, but it's about a photographer who takes a picture that reveals that there's been a murder. And he's living in swinging 60s London, and everything is free sex, and everything's great, and all this stuff. And he starts to try and track this murder down, and he cannot find the truth. And by the end of the movie, he can't tell what's true and what isn't. And the last scene of the movie becomes a kind of just commentary on the whole film. A group of clowns go by in the park, and they get out of a truck, I think it is, or a car, and they start playing a game of tennis with an invisible tennis ball. And the photographer watches this game, and he's now totally confused about what's real. Did he ever see the body? Does any of it really exist? And he's watching them hit this invisible make-believe tennis ball back and forth. And after a while, he starts to hear the tennis ball going back and forth because he's fallen into this imaginative world that these clowns have created. And finally, they hit the ball, the clowns hit the ball, and they say, you can't see it, but they say it has rolled at the photographer's feet. And they say, pick it up and throw it back. The clowns tell him, pick up the tennis ball and throw it back. And there is no tennis ball. And finally, in the last frame of the picture, he picks up the tennis ball, and just at really the last moment, he vanishes. He vanishes. When he becomes part of the empire of lies, when he becomes part of the culture of lies, when he accepts the culture of lies, he disappears into that culture, and that's what they want to happen to you. That is what they want to happen to all of us. And those of us who keep saying it's there, who keep calling it out, who keep saying things that are different, they want to silence us. George Soros wants to silence us. The government wants to silence us. Pfizer wants to silence us. The FBI wants to silence us. That is what this is about, because they are the power, because they have the power now that they have acquired over the last 60 years to sell this lie until finally you are watching these clowns play invisible tennis and you start to hear the tennis ball fall and you start to think, maybe it's me. Maybe it's me. You know, in Christianity, they talk about the temptations of life, and they call them the world, the flesh, and the devil, right? Well, now we know, right, the flesh and the devil are the world. This is what, you know, these guys, these churches that put up their gay pride flags and their Black Lives Matter things, it's not because I'm against gay people, certainly not against black people, that I won't go to those churches. It's because they don't understand that we're not here to make the world a better place. We're here to bring our souls to fruition. You do that easier in a free country because people don't crucify you and throw you to the lions, but you have to do it. It is the thing you are here to do. You don't set aside some of your desires to torture yourself and become a pinched small person. You set aside those desires to free yourself for greater pleasures still. You set aside certain pleasures in life to get greater pleasures still, the pleasure of coming to fruition as the person God made you to be. That is how we got to the point where we started to think about individual freedom, thinking about Christianity. That is how we got to the part where we started thinking about individual freedom. Why wouldn't the people who want power sell us the devil's line that we're just bodies? Why wouldn't they? Why would they not do it? Do the things that make you a slave. All that sex feels so good, but it makes you a slave. Drugs feel great, make you slaves. That's what they want. They own this culture. We are the revolution. And I'm going to be talking about specific things that we have to do, but it's something we have to really think about, how you fight when it's no longer a siege. It's actually a war of conquest. Man, that guy is great. I love him. For more like that, like and subscribe, and also subscribe to The Andrew Klavan Show wherever you get your podcasts.